Good afternoon. I'll start by complimenting Commissioner. Tim has been such a strong leader. I was telling a reporter earlier, if being a coach in this conference feels like when I was a player in Baltimore and Steve Bisciotti took over. It feels like when I was a player in Tampa and the Glaziers took over. It feels like being a player at the 49ers when Jed York was learning how to be one of the best owners in football. When you have a strong leader that has courage, that has boldness, that is willing to think outside the box, that communicates so clearly with his people under him, and then that can build a great team, because Tim gets a lot of credit, but the team he's built is so good in this conference. It gives you comfort knowing that you're led by the right person and the right people. So I want to start by thanking him. And I'm sure every coach came up here and thanked their admin and their president. Nobody's more thankful than me that I even have a job. So, after 7 wins in 2 years, I'm incredibly grateful that we get an opportunity to try to fix this thing this year. It's been incredibly disappointing. At times I don't know how to articulate what's happened, but John Gordon's a dear friend. He has this corny acronym that he's used forever, but it's so true. And I've experienced as a player and now as a coach, loss. Learning opportunity, stay strong. Everybody talks about the learning opportunity. The stay strong is the hard part, because you have to stay strong for your people. And in the midst of incredible turnover, in the midst of some very difficult situations we've had to encounter, staying strong for the people that are under me has been a real challenge, because there's times I felt very weak. There's times where you just don't feel like you have the stuff that they need. And I know a lot of coaches, we're in an era when college coaches are supposed to be strong, invincible. We celebrate ego and brashness and this and that, and I'm the opposite. I've been broken. Now, obviously I have a much richer football life than many of them, but I'm not afraid to admit that I've been broken by this, and that's a good thing. I think if you think that's a bad thing, then you're probably where I was a few years ago, where you haven't realized in your journey that this is part of it. I've had to rethink through some leadership things. I've had to rethink through some football stuff. I've had to rethink through some nurturing things. And the one thing that I've come back to is that the biggest mistake that I made that others make when they're not successful is they try to be something they're not. And we're all wired a certain way, and I'm wired as a nurturer. I'm wired as a positive guy. I've gone back and talked to teammates and said what are the best qualities about me as a leader. I've gone back and talked to coaches that have worked for or worked with me, and I've tried to go back to being a better version of me, and I think that's what our building needs. I went out and I tried to align myself with new coaches that see the world through my lens. We've tried to love our players tough. We've really pushed them to be grown men, get the childish ways behind them. They've been given more responsibility in this era of rev share and NIL, and I think that it's our responsibility to help them grow faster, be more mature earlier, so that money doesn't ruin them. So we've had to align our building in such a way that maximizes not just the coaches in it, but the players in it. And the best analogy I've given is if you took a towel and you soaked it in water and then you started twisting it to get the water out. Most of us will twist it and get it to where we think it's dry, but it's not dry, it's still damp. So then you got to really grind it a little bit harder. Get a couple more drops out, and you think it's dry. It's not dry. Then you step on one side and you twist it more, and you get some partners to squeeze, and you think this towel is dry, but there's still more water in there. That's how we're looking at our program. We're trying to twist that towel to squeeze out every possible drop of potential our players have, our coaches have, our staffers have. Twist that towel to maximize every resource that we have. And we're loving the battle of doing so. So I told myself, listen, I learned how to coach speak when I was about 24 years old. I wasn't going to do that to y'all. I'll be honest. I'll be transparent. I'll answer any question you have. But that's the state of the UAB football program.
Thank you, Coach. We're going to take some questions now. Please raise your hand so our microphones can get to them. We're going to start over on the right with league winners, so please introduce yourself prior to your questions.
Hey, Coach. How you doing today?
Good.
My name is Thomas Christopher from the League Winners. What's your strategy for positioning UAB to compete with the conference's top programs? And how do you game plan for unique challenges like Army, Navy, and now Rice's options?
Yeah, I think the first question is probably something that other coaches have talked about. I'm taking the stance that we have what we have, and we're going to maximize every single part of it. I can't control what other people have. I can't control any of that stuff. I can control what the resources we have, and we're going to position ourselves by looking under every rock and breaking every pane of glass, like the commissioner said, to maximize the potential within our building. The strategic challenges are real. And I was just doing the TV thing and was trying to explain that, I wanted to find a defensive staff that has the same background as I have defensively as part of two of the greatest defenses in the history of professional football, in the '99 Buccaneers and the 2000 Ravens. And both Monty Kiffin and Marvin Lewis were very similar in a lot of things they did. So I wanted to bring somebody in that kind of saw the world that way, but also could defend the triple option. So I was basically looking for a unicorn. And, you guys probably know this about me. I'm a man of faith, and I sat there and I just started praying, Lord, I don't think this is possible, but, could you please try to bring me this person? And he presented himself as Steve Russ, and his time at Air Force became very familiar with defending the triple. Knows it like the back of his hand. Now the triple's evolved a lot since then, so we all have our challenges defending these incredible coaches that coach this hybrid triple option thing. But I want to have both of those things, to structure an NFL style defense with the sophistication, with the teaching progressions, with the knowledge of how to play certain structures, to be multiple, but then to also have the ability to defend the triple was something that we have to do, and Steve is the man, and then to be a hire people that maybe fill gaps of his or that he's comfortable working with has been pretty amazing to watch him put together this defensive staff.
Questions for Coach Dilfer? We'll stay with league winners. Go ahead.
Coach Thomas Christopher from the League Winners once again. It's kind of interesting, prior to the 2002 NFL season, there were rumors that you actually had some interest joining the Cincinnati Bengals, where John Kitna was actually the quarterback. Now you're coaching his son. Can you talk about the relationship you have with the Kitna family and your expectations for Jalen this season?
Yeah, and I thought long and hard before I came here how I was going to talk about Jalen, because if I was in your seat, which I was for years, I would think there'd be a natural bias by me talking about Jalen, and there probably would be, right, if I were just to give you a basic outline of him. I've been very close to the family for years. John and I grew up playing the same time. We're dear friends off the field. We're both board members of a ministry, so our wives know each other. We did the high school coaching thing, like we leaned on each other for high school stuff. So we go really far back. The thing I didn't want to make the mistake of with Jalen when he came to UAB was you could tell in about 3 hours that he was the most talented person in the building. It didn't take long to realize that I didn't even know how talented Jalen was when he went to Florida. I was so busy at Lipscomb and so busy doing that and dealing with my own quarterbacks that I had forgotten how talented Jalen was. And then to see him and be around him, you realize that, you truly have a unique talent. But he hadn't played a lot of football, and I didn't want to throw him in there, and I didn't want it to be Trent's biased, so he's going to play his buddy's kid thing, and I didn't want daddy ball stuff to come up. So Jalen had to earn it. He came off an injury that set him back a little bit, and then it just became clear that he was the best quarterback on our team. So when we made the move, we knew there was going to be some growing pains because he hadn't played a lot of football. And he played kind of like we expected him to. His highs were extremely highs and his lows were extremely low. But what gave us tremendous confidence through the process going into this year was that he never changed. You know, whether he threw for whatever he threw for Tulsa or whether, you know, he threw a few interceptions and we got beat by 1,000,000 by Tulane, he stayed the same. And he showed a lot of the qualities that the great NFL quarterbacks have that I wish I had more of, which is just that temperament to not flinch. And the kid just doesn't flinch. He's gone through a lot of adversity already as a young person and has handled it extremely well, and the football was part of it. Here's how I'll sum up Jalen Kitna, because I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of questions, and you can refer back to this quote as the season goes on. I was the 6th pick of the NFL draft in 1994. I was projected to be the 1st pick. At the time, I was one of the higher-rated quarterbacks that had ever been evaluated. Now, I was not very good, but I was very talented. Jalen Kitna is better than me at every level of football at this stage of our career. There's not one thing that I was better at than Jalen Kitna is. And I was the 6th pick of the draft. So now I also played with, I think, 7 NFL players on that offense. I had Jeff Tedford as my coach, who's a much better coach than I am. So I had some advantages. And our challenge is not for Jalen to play to our expectation. Our challenge is support him with people that can help him flourish. And the responsibility is us as coaches to coach him that well. Because when you're given a unique talent, there's a burden on the coach to not dumb it down too much. Like, we have a responsibility to not just win games, but to get him ready to go have a 15 to 20-year career in the NFL. And we take that very serious, and we demand a lot from him in that process. And he is, like last year, he has not flinched in that process.
Continuing questions for Coach Dilfer. Coach, I'll throw one out for you. The other side of the ball, you brought another student athlete. If you can just talk about him and what you expect from him this season.
Thank you. Yeah, Denver's been a great asset to our team. You know, we really targeted a certain type of kid in the portal. We know that we have to be very strategic and watch the markets play out in the portal. So with this new staff, with some additions to our personnel department, we took a very tactical approach on the type of kid and the type of traits we were looking for. And Denver we targeted him off jump. In fact, he's one of the very few that in the early evaluation period when the markets were really hot and people were being paid more than they're worth, he was already at the top of that list. And we were very fortunate that we were able to, you know, wait it out and get him for the price that we got him. He's a dynamic interior player. He's versatile. He can play the 3 technique. He can jump inside and play a 2. He has pass rush ability. He's got strength. He's got twitch. He's super smart. Really good leadership qualities. Has really been a huge asset as we've tried to make our building take kind of more of a professional approach to how we do life and football. Denver's been a great leader. He's been one of, you know, we prioritize service in our program probably as much as anybody in the country. It's at 4,500 hours now of our kids serving the 99 neighborhoods of Birmingham, which is really important to us. And Denver, in his short time here, has already put in 40 hours. And by the way, Jalen Kitna leads our team with like 70 hours. So our best players are our best people. They're our best leaders, and Denver fits into that.
Final question will be back over from league winners.
Man, you got a lot to ask me, dude. This is awesome.
Hey, man, somebody's got to do it. It's Thomas Christopher from the League Winners. You know, last year you had a program that had a top 5 passing offense in the conference, but on the other hand of that, you guys had a bottom 4 rushing attack and was the lone team with, you know, single-digit rushing touchdowns. How do you plan on balancing the team's pass-heavy approach with the need for a consistent running game?
Yeah, we've always wanted to be more balanced. You know, I'll take a lot of that blame. We also got to a point where when we weren't going to go to a bowl game, I wanted to make sure that Jalen was getting as many attempts as possible. You know, if I go back and do it all over again to protect his body, to protect some of the limitations we had on the offensive line, I would have stayed more balanced. My history has been being balanced. If you go back to even my high school Lipscomb play calling days, I would end each year at like 51% run, 49% pass. Like, it's kind of scary balanced. I believed in that in the NFL. We got out of whack a little bit last year. I will say this, though. The college game has changed a little bit too, and with the rules, a lot of these pass attempts are really runs. You know, I mean, if you go back and look at the Green Bay Packers split back sweep, that's like 6 passes of ours. Like, we're running sweep plays. They just happen to be called passes. So I don't get too caught up in those numbers anymore. I think yards per attempt is a much more telling stat when you're talking about rushing. I think finishing drives off running the football is really important. And then obviously more important than any of it is turning the ball over, and, you know, less bad things can happen when you run the football. So mitigating risk is definitely, it doesn't get talked about enough from an offensive standpoint and from a play caller standpoint. But to me, in my experience in football, when you can mitigate risk and still not limit explosive qualities, that's kind of the happy balance you're trying to find. And we, like every other great offensive coach in this conference, and there's a bunch of them, are searching for that secret sauce.
Thanks, Coach. That's all the time we have for you.
All right, thanks, you guys. Appreciate it.
Next will be East Carolina.